Welcome to Beyond the Badge. Beyond the Badge is an inside look at your Oshkosh Police Department, brought to you through the resources of Oshkosh Community Media Services.
Welcome to this edition of Beyond the Badge. I'm Joe Nichols. On today's show, we'll be talking with Officer Mike Kirby about the heroin problem that is occurring in the Oshkosh area. Later in the show, Mike will be back with us to talk with us about safe winter driving. We welcome all of you watching us on City Cable 10 and those of you listening to us on 101.9 WOCT. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Joe.
Thanks for coming. Mike, before we begin, if you could just please tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a patrol officer here in Oshkosh since January of 1981. So I've seen a lot of changes here in the city. And I've been a DARE officer since 1989. So this will be our 25th year doing DARE here in Oshkosh. So being a DARE officer for the last 25 years, I've tried to keep my ear to the ground, and I read up and I study about drug trends. Not just worldwide, but also as it applies to our communities right here.
Very good. And Mike, heroin has become a big problem in the city of Oshkosh. Why has heroin become such a big problem in recent years?
Well, again, from the people I talked to, there was a cycle of addiction that most people go through, people who enter the drug world. For instance, they might start with alcohol. When alcohol isn't good enough, maybe they hit marijuana. And they use marijuana for a while, but when that doesn't get them as high anymore as they're used to or want, they would switch. So like 15, 20 years ago, they would maybe switch to something like cocaine or crack. But a change occurred maybe 10 years ago. Going from marijuana, a lot of people would go to a pharmaceutical instead. By that I'm talking about Oxycontin, oxycodone, Vicodin, Percocet, one of the synthetic narcotic painkillers. So when people switch to those drugs, overdose deaths skyrocketed, armed robberies at pharmacies skyrocketed, and to combat that problem, what they did was they tightened security at the pharmacies, they tightened security elsewhere, but they reformulated those pills. Now those pills are like they were like synthetic heroin. Heroin was real stuff, and all those pills were like synthetic heroin. So basically, by reformulating those pills, they made those pills harder to get for the drug addict, and it didn't work as well. Therefore, the drug addict started going back to the old standby heroin. Heroin was cheaper, and it still had the effects. Heroin has not been reformulated like the other pharmaceuticals.
Very good. Okay. And where does heroin come from?
Well, back in the 60s and 70s, they had the Golden Triangle was the Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, most of the heroin, it starts out with the opium poppy, and most of that ends up in this country, most of that is grown in, of all places, Afghanistan. It's taken there. The warlords take control of it. They turn it into the oils, and then that gets taken to or smuggled into either Central America, South America, perhaps Colombia or Mexico. From there, gets refined into heroin, and it comes up into our country from Mexico. Maybe the first place might hit is Phoenix, maybe, or definitely ends up in Chicago. From Chicago, it splits off to Milwaukee, and then ends up here. I've had people here in Oshkosh that are doing heroin runs. Sometimes they get it from Milwaukee, sometimes they get it right down from Chicago. But either way, the trail goes all the way back to those fields in Afghanistan. And every time that heroin passes from one country to the next or one dealer to the next, they each take a little slice of the profit. And so what actually ends up happening is some of the profits that are being made actually go way back to the warlords there in Afghanistan. That's what's helping to support their fight.
Interesting. So how does heroin get from there, from there to here?
Well, they smuggle it. I know some of it would go through like ports of Hong Kong and end up on the West Coast, coming in through L.A. or Long Beach. And like I said, most of ours comes in through Central and South America.
Okay, very good. And heroin is a deadly drug, yet people continue to use it. Why is it a deadly drug?
Well, what I did is I've been collecting newspaper articles and information, for years regarding what goes on. One of the reasons it's so deadly is because you don't know how pure it is. You get some black tar substance, someone says it's heroin, you don't know how pure it is. It could be 100% pure will kill you. It will kill you. And so what you have to figure out is at what point won't it kill you? 98%, 96%? I mean, at what point does it become safe? And there's no testing for heroin. It's a street drug. It's like I said, it's not like a pharmaceutical. So I got an article here out of Oregon, and a doctor who has been working on overdose deaths in Oregon, he goes, from my experience, basically this stuff is anywhere from 40 to 80% pure. If they're used to 40% and they get 80%, that could be lethal right there. How are you supposed to know? In New York City, they had these cool names for these things. Like New York City, they had China Cat brought in. And it caused a bunch of deaths in New York City. And, China Cat, it's cool. Hey, you want to try this? It's China Cat. And after these people were dying, they tested the China Cat, found it to be 94% pure. Like I said, 100% pure will kill you. Well, I guess 94% will kill you too. How are you supposed to know the difference?
Absolutely. And what causes it to be so addictive?
Well, funny you should ask, because I have some more here. This is some of the things that I talk about when I'm in school. Part of the problem here with heroin is that it takes dramatically higher doses to achieve the same effect, meaning the highs are harder to achieve. It's hard to get that same high, so you have to take more and more. And for something like heroin, someone who starts with like a $10 a day heroin habit could, without trying hard, end up with a $2,000 a day habit in a month, chasing that high. Because what happens when the heroin enters the bloodstream, it enters into the bloodstream, the liver starts breaking down the heroin. It goes into the limbic system. The limbic system is the nerve groupings that trigger pleasure. It gives you the pleasure in the brain. Within 5 minutes, there is a reassuring drowsiness from the medulla at the base of the brain. Well, the medulla controls your heartbeat and your breathing. And as it slows down your heartbeat and breathing, it'll slow from maybe 13 or 14 breaths a minute to maybe 3 or 4 breaths a minute as you slow down. The trouble is with that is because when you exhale, you're getting rid of carbon dioxide, you're also getting rid of water vapor. And if you don't exhale the way you're supposed to, carbon dioxide builds up in your body, can lead to coma. And the water vapor stays in your lungs, and basically you kind of start to fill up with fluid in your lungs. Sometimes people get a whitish froth around their mouth and nose. And as your body slows down, your heart might continue to beat, but your breathing stops.
Wow.
And I have seen that on medical calls.
Very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. What are some of the other symptoms of someone that is on heroin?
Well, some of the symptoms, what I've seen is poor health. They end up not eating, get very skinny. I mean, all their money, they're so addicted, all their money is going into drugs. I mean, that's one of the things you can look at. You can just see. I mean, you can also see perhaps the needle marks. The first veins they hit are probably these ones until these are so scarred over, they have to start finding other veins. Okay. Symptoms, I mean, things you can look for include paraphernalia. Like there might be a graphic on that kind of showing like the rubber tourniquet that they pull on their arm to stop the blood, basically make their veins bulge, the needles. Okay. They need a way to cook the heroin. What I have seen personally is the spoons. You put the heroin in the spoon and you heat it on the bottom. Now, once that liquefies, they put the needle into the heroin, draw it out, and then put it in their arm. And sometimes what's left behind is a spoon, maybe with burnt marks on the bottom. I've also seen a bottle cap used to do the same thing. You say, why do you see a bottle cap there? And you turn it over and you'll see the bottom is burnt. Well, they were using it to cook their heroin right there. Those are the kind of things that we've seen behind with the paraphernalia. Other signs you can tell, are changes in behavior. I mean, you'll see a person, some of the first people that will realize that someone's on heroin is the family, because they can see that change in behavior. They hurt their family, they can lose their friends, you can see the signs of addiction, people lose their job. Other consequences that you might see all of a sudden is different people around, dangerous people hanging around. People maybe talk about weapons, maybe talk about gangs, there's talk of violence. I've had people on drugs that have been paranoid. They think everyone's out to get them. If they're in a room and they start putting blankets over the windows because they think people are peeking in, and they put weapons all around their room because they think they're going to be attacked, these are all signs that maybe the family would see before a police officer would see.
Okay. So how are we attacking the problem?
But first of all, this whole drug problem, it's very dangerous. The greatest consequence of them all is how it hurts the family. And the way I would attack it first is starting with the family. Parents need to talk to their children about the drug world. It does not bring you joy, it does not bring you happiness, it's not the good stuff, it doesn't relieve stress. All it does is cause more problems. So I would encourage the families to talk to their children first. Next step, I believe, is where we come in. As their officers, we talk to the kids, not just about the dangers of drugs and the consequences and what the drugs do, but in my opinion, what we do is we try to teach them how to say no, give them practice how to say no so that they can say no and feel good about it and feel confident. So education is the second step. And the third step is bringing the hammer down, Joe. It's enforcement. If people know right from wrong. Second graders know right from wrong, but yet people still do wrong anyway. Mm-hmm. So it has to be enforcement. There has to be accountability. So we bring in we actually have in the Oshkosh Police Department a special unit, DTF, the Drug Task Force, which enforces laws, and they're doing a good job right now. We've had a number of heroin deaths in the past. We set a goal to have fewer, and we're surpassing that goal now. When I say we, I mean it's the officers of the DTF, the Drug Task Force, and they deserve a big shout out for their efforts. Absolutely. But then after enforcement comes, court. And the courts, we have a drug court, which doesn't exactly focus on punishment, but perhaps treatment and rehabilitation. So we put this whole ball together, starting with families, education, enforcement, treatment and rehab. Hopefully we can get a handle on what's going on out there.
Very good. Mike, well, thank you so much for talking with us about the heroin problem here in Oshkosh. And we'll be right back after this short break.
City Manager Mark Roloff. Roundabouts are new to many of us in Oshkosh, so we have to take extra precaution when using them. Remember, safety is the key. Slow down. The speed limit in the roundabout is only 15 miles an hour. Avoid distractions. Focus all your attention on navigating the roundabout. Find the proper lane. Check out the signage leading up to the roundabout. Choose your lane assignment early and stay in your lane. Evaluate the situation. Take notice of what kind of vehicles are in front of you. Sometimes larger trucks need to take up both lanes of a roundabout. Think to look for pedestrians and allow them to cross when entering and exiting a roundabout. Yield to traffic on your left. You must yield to all traffic in the roundabout, and that traffic will be coming from your left. Again, safety is the key. Remember that word and what those letters represent, and your roundabout driving experience will be a smooth one. Thanks for your support.
Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Badge. Mike is back with us again, and we're going to be talking about the snow coming soon and how we should be driving in it. And Mike, winter is a dangerous season to drive in due to the snow and the ice that is out on the roadway. What are some safe winter driving tips that you can give to our viewers and listeners?
Okay. Well, first of all, vehicle owners should make sure that their car is cleared of all snow and ice before the vehicle is driven. And that's not only snow and ice on the windows and side windows, but also the roof, hood, the trunk, and the lights of the vehicle. Sometimes you're driving down the road and you'll see cars driving there. They haven't cleared the snow, and snow will fly off the roof.
Sure.
Back at the cars behind them. So do that. And the other thing, is clear lights. Especially your headlights and your brake lights. So I've had accidents before where people could not see brake lights being applied because they were covered with snow. It only takes a minute. You probably have gloves on. Just clear the brake lights and the headlights. And if you don't, it's true that a driver could be stopped by the police for not having the snow removed from these same things: the windows, the lights, even the license plate. Okay, it all needs to be cleared. Otherwise, there could be a citation for those violations. When there's a snowstorm and you have to be outside driving, you don't have to stop every 5 minutes to wipe the snow off your hood or trunk or anything. But you need to know at least when you stop, when you go somewhere, keep it clear. It's for your safety. If you're driving down the street and people cannot see your headlights, they might pull out in front of you, and it's going to be harder to stop in the snow anyway.
Very good. And before driving in the winter season, how should we prepare our vehicles?
Well, you should winterize it. Make sure it's in a good working condition, and there's a lot of things to think about when you winterize the car. There's a lot of systems that need to be looked at. You should be checking, of course, your fuel system. You don't want that to fail. Actually, you don't want any of these to fail. Your cooling and exhaust system, and all the fluid levels. You should also be checking your tires, the tire pressure, and your brakes to make sure they function right. One of the most forgotten fluids to check is the windshield fluid. When you check the windshield fluid, also check your windshield wipers to make sure they're not pitted or dirty. Make sure they're in good shape. Another fluid that's quickly forgotten is gasoline. One of the most important vehicle checks that should be made every time that you drive. Make sure that you have enough gasoline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is there anything else that we should be carrying in our cars during the winter season?
Yeah, an emergency kit is good, just in case you get stranded. You should have basics: matches, flashlight, blanket, food and water, first aid kit. Anything that a person might need to survive in cold weather for some time.
Okay. All right. Good advice. And Mike, do you have any other suggestions for owners or drivers that may get stranded in a storm out on the roadway due to the fact that the vehicle broke down, or maybe get stuck in deep snow?
Yes. If you get stuck, stay in your vehicle. If you have a cell phone, of course, make the call. We'll get help out to you. But stay in your vehicle. Don't go off walking. If you walk in a storm, it can be very dangerous. And the best place where you're going to have the most protection is in that vehicle. Be calm, and eventually the storm will pass, and you will be found. We'll have emergency vehicles out, the trucks. You will be found. Keep fresh air in your vehicle, and keep the area by your tailpipe clear of snow and debris, because you don't want to run your engine if your tailpipe is blocked. Don't run your engine unless you know the snow is clear from your tailpipe. If not, you could be overcome by carbon monoxide. They could sneak back up into the vehicle. You have your cell phone, make sure it's charged. And I guess one thing I want to say is, even if you have a deactivated cell phone, one that doesn't have service, you can still dial 911. 911 works with the deactivated cell phones.
It's still going to work. Absolutely. And what are some of the hazards that may occur if an occupant, of a crashed or stranded vehicle is not prepared for the winter?
Frostbite is a major concern for anyone. So if someone ventures outside of their vehicle, or if the vehicle does not start, frostbite can set in within 1 minute at temperatures below 25 below zero. Frostbite affects mostly the fingers and toes on the person. You notice redness on the skin and a burning or stinging sensation in the frostbite location. If a person believes they have frostbite, they should attempt to warm that part of the body quickly, such as putting fingers under the pit of their arms. When the area is warmed, cover this area with something to keep it warm and prevent the area from freezing again. Because hypothermia is a rapid loss of body temperature, and it can happen to anyone. Symptoms of hypothermia are uncontrollable shaking, drowsiness, and slurred speech. It's extremely important, if you begin to see these symptoms, get warm. as soon as possible.
Very good, very good. In the last few years, we have seen quite a bit of snow, and for some, they like it. For others, they don't. But what should drivers remember to do when driving in the very first snowfall?
Oh, remember, you know what it's like to drive in the snow. You have to slow down and back away from the vehicle in front of you. Give yourself plenty of time to slow down and stop, especially if you start to slide. Wear your seatbelt, because if there's a collision, you still want to be belted in. We don't want you to hit your head and lose consciousness. Too many people forget how to drive in the snow because we haven't done it for so long. The stopping distance is almost tripled when driving in the snow at 25 miles an hour. So instead of keeping 1 car length for every 10 miles an hour, you better keep 3 car lengths for every 10 miles an hour. Leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle and the one in front of you. It's especially important. If you're too close to another vehicle, you'll make contact with that vehicle. And you'll find out with your insurance rates going up or paying a fine and paying your deductible, probably would have just been better if you'd just left 5 minutes earlier and not had a hurry, or maybe arrived somewhere 2 minutes late. It's better than crashing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I talk to the kids at the driving school too, and I let them know that parking lots are very popular with some of the younger population, and doing donuts in the snow is cause for a reckless driving citation, which they will probably end up losing their license and also $400 in the process.
Right, and then their insurance rates go up. So even after you pay that $400 fine, you're still paying maybe an extra $300 a year insurance every year for the next 5 years. So that $400 fine ends up costing $1,900.
Absolutely. And as an officer, you have investigated many crashes during the winter season. What are some of the contributing factors that causes these crashes?
For me, the biggest one in a crash is going too fast for conditions. The law says, like for instance, if you're on, we'll just say Oregon Street and speed limit's 25 miles an hour, and you lose control in the conditions and you crash, you're at fault. And people will say, but I was doing 25 miles an hour. You're going too fast for conditions. That's the law. You can't keep your car under control. You can't stop it. You can't turn. If you can't keep it under control, you cannot even do 25 miles an hour. That for me has been my number one. They were going too fast for the conditions. Didn't say you were speeding over the speed limit, but you're going too fast for conditions. Then, secondly, they're following too close. When your stopping distance is tripled, you need extra time for your vehicle to slow to a stop. Some people just don't clean the windows of their car. They don't take care of their lights. There's ice. I think we've all seen people trying to drive down the road, looking through a patch this big, right above their defroster. So really, please, slow down. Give the person in front of you a lot of room, and that would take care of most of the problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if a vehicle is losing traction in the snow or ice and begins to slide, what should a driver do?
The first thing is don't panic. Okay, it happens to everyone. Don't panic. Basically, take your foot off the gas pedal and steer the vehicle in the direction of the skid. Don't be slamming on the brakes and locking up the wheels. As soon as you do that, you've just lost control of the car. You still want to be you want the wheels to roll a little and your front wheels to roll a little, so when they finally bite in traction, you can regain control. It's a natural reaction just to slam on the brakes as hard as you can, and that will actually make the skid or the slide worse.
All right. And Mike, what are some other safe winter driving tips that you can give to our listeners and viewers?
So people who drive maybe 4x4 vehicles, I've heard this before, I've seen it, they become overconfident when driving in the snow and ice. And although these vehicles have better traction in the snow, when it's being driven, they will not stop any faster than a two-wheel drive vehicle when the brakes are applied. So just a reminder to all drivers, the most important advice I can give is, here we go, slow down, take your time, keep a good distance from the vehicle in front of you, and wear your seat belt. As officers are trained, it's better to get where you're going slowly than to not get there fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so very much for talking with us about our safe winter driving habits, because the snow is coming very soon. And I know Minnesota got it the other day, so just one state away.
Yep, it's coming soon, and,
Absolutely.
and we know it.
Be here sooner than later, I'll tell you that much. We'll be right back after this short break.
In Wisconsin, the laws are the same for bicyclists and motorists. So if you bike, ride with the traffic and obey stop signs and lights. Whether you ride a bike or drive a car, you must yield the right-of-way to pedestrians at marked and unmarked crosswalks. At intersections, always look for pedestrians before making a turn, and slow down in school zones and neighborhoods to keep our kids safe. Share and be aware. We're all responsible.
Welcome back to Beyond the Badge. We thank Officer Mike Kirby for being on today's show and talking with us. If you would like to watch the show again, you may go to www.oshkoshcommunitymedia.org or the Oshkosh Police Department's website at oshkoshpd.com and click on the Beyond the Badge icon. Thank you for watching and listening to us on today's show. Remember to report all suspicious activity and persons to the Oshkosh Police Department. Officer Mike Kirby was talking about some of the enforcement measures that we do for heroin, for the heroin problem or other drugs that are in the city, and we need your help. So if you do happen to see something suspicious in your neighborhood, please don't hesitate to call us at 236-5700. If you or someone you know needs help with a drug problem, please call the crisis line if you do not want to be involved with law enforcement right away. Their number is 233-7707. For those that would like to start a neighborhood watch in their neighborhood, we have a meeting coming up on November 12th at the Senior Center in the Willows Room, beginning at 6:30 p.m. We hope to see you there. If you don't make the meeting, please give the Oshkosh Police Department a call. And thank you for watching and listening to Beyond the Badge. Until next time, stay safe.